In this virtual poster presentation, I'm going to talk about how non-significant results are presented in the animal cognition literature. The work presented here today is the result of a collaboration between a number of researchers. It's already been published in PeerJ, so if you want more details, which you may want because I can only cover things briefly, then I'd recommend going to the paper. You can access it via the QR code here. Before getting onto the main topic, which is how the no results have been written up in the literature, we first need to consider how you should be writing up no results and what a p-value really is. So a p-value is the probability of a data, or more extreme, if the null hypothesis is true. So what you have here is a graph showing the probability of different effect sizes under the null hypothesis being true. And as scientists, we tend to have an arbitrary threshold at 0.05, and anything that is less likely to happen than that we call significant. But the issue is it's less likely to happen if the null hypothesis is true, which only takes into account part of the story. It doesn't take into account the probability of detecting an effect when the experimental hypothesis is true. And when you think about this, you can see that there's an area here called beta where your p-value would be non-significant, but the experimental hypothesis may be true. There's a probability that the experimental hypothesis is true. So it's always going to be the case that a null result has a possibility that in reality the experimental hypothesis is true. Why is this important to bear in mind? Well, people have gone through papers in different fields and found that often they tend to report no results in a way that isn't technically correct. So they would say that there is no difference between two conditions when they have a null result, which, as we've just seen, isn't technically true because there's always a probability that there is a difference, it just wasn't detected. So we wanted to look at what the situation was like in the animal cognition field, and so we went through a number of journals and 2 preprint servers and went through around 15 papers in each of these journals to try and see how null results were reported. To be included in our study, the title of abstract needed to report a non-significant result. And then once we'd seen that, we went to the results section and made sure that the result was actually based on an HST test rather than on another test where these issues don't apply. And ultimately we had 302 papers that passed our initial screening and 283 that were included in the final study. We split the results into different categories. So either they were non-significant, so they reported that the results were non-significant, or they made this claim that there was no difference between X and Y, so this was categorized as no effect. We also had 2 other categories that were based on whether the authors reported that the effect sizes were similar, or in some cases we had ambiguous results. So what did we find? Well, we found that in the titles, people tended to use this no effect type reporting. In the abstracts, they still tended to use the no effect reporting. There was more instances of the use of non-significant there. When we get to the results section, we see that actually over half of the people writing about their null results used the non-significant terminology. We also noticed that there was a link between the different sections, that in the results section you would have a no effect result reported, then it was more likely that the abstract had a no effect result reported. So what does this mean in terms of concluding or making a conclusion? Well, the reports of null results tend not to align with the information provided by such statistical tests. We've seen that in a lot of cases people are reporting no effects when they're getting a result, and we know that this is formally incorrect. But we're not sure how problematic this tendency is. If you can see as you go through the paper, and as you have more and more space to write about your results, people tend to write in the formally correct way about it, or more likely to write in the formally correct way about it. So we're not yet sure how problematic this tendency is.